T1 and Echo. Phase dive forward. Forgiven's getting chunked out. Time winder plus boomerang. It's not done yet. Cube's on Forgiven. Cube's got Forgiven. Vander's not going to be able to turn it back around. H2K, they cannot leave their fountain. H2K, they will be going home. A 3-0 sweep will send Samsung Galaxy to the World Final.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Worlds Tonight as we get closer to finding out who will raise the Summoners Cup one more time. Will it be defending champions SKT or now will it be Samsung Galaxy? We'll start, however, with tonight's semifinal matchup of Samsung Galaxy versus H2K. Many on the analyst desk said 3-0 as it were to go. Some threw a game in there, but Samsung Galaxy came and they performed.
And look, I mean, the big story here, of course, was that both teams were on those big undefeated streaks. We're like, okay, one streak has to end in game one. I went over to Samsung. That was definitely the closest of the 3 games, but that streak for Samsung, it's still going after this series.
Yeah, and I'm just super impressed with Samsung, how they've become such a good early game team while still maintaining some of these late game fantastic like shot call moments that we've seen before from them, where even with Core JJ, no Wraith in there, they're still able to actually outplay the should we say, Korean powerhouses, or other Korean powerhouses in the late game macro-wise. H2K had no chance past like 25 minutes.
And this game one was basically mano-a-mano from Ambition and Jankos for the first start. And it actually came down to it being the junglers for a lot of this series.
And I think the game one, as you say, it was mano-a-mano. It changed a bit in game 2, but Jankos was keeping them in the game all the way through, but Ambition was farming. He was actually being a lot more defensive. He needed his lanes to play safely, but his lanes did that, and then they came to a head in the late game.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see Jankos play this well. I definitely feel like he's been the best performing Western player at the entire tournament. Kind of showed it here as well. Like, he was the guy who needed to be the X factor, who needed to get every single lane ahead. But the problem is, as a jungler, you can't gank every single lane. And the enemy jungler will also make plays on the map when you're doing something. And Ambition and Samsung were just able to cross-map H2K every single time. I don't even remember like a specific counter gank, but I remember Jankos getting a kill in top lane and then Ambition getting a kill bot lane or Dragon, like every single time they just traded.
And we hop into game 3 in Samsung Galaxy, basically already the train on the tracks. They were moving fast. There was little that H2K could do at this point.
Yeah, I can just say here, like, this game was not H2K. This was a team down 0-2 who was super desperate, who had to try and pull off some crazy plays. And we have seen this before when a team is down 2-0 already. So judge them on game 1 and game 2. Game 3 were them trying to throw the entire kitchen sink at Samsung.
And we were looking for an evolution from one of these teams. Both of them looked much better in the early game. We were wondering which team would take the next step. Over the course of the series, we got the answer. It was Samsung, tightened up their play, close game 1, less close game 2, and then Samsung in full control in game 3.
All right, so before we fully talk about the matches going forward, this is Samsung Galaxy we see that could put a dent in SKT and even take the cup away from them.
I think it's hard to make that prediction, honestly. SKT just beat what I expected to be the best team in the world, Rox Tigers. Many did, obviously, coming into the tournament. They just beat them in such an epic series where they play 5 hours of League of Legends with so few mistakes and on such a high level. Samsung, sadly for them, not to blame Samsung, but sadly for them, they haven't gotten to face Rox or SKT so far, so we haven't seen them fully challenged that way, and I think SKT comes in as a big favorite.
And it's pretty much the same story as last year. SKT in the same situation, big favorites in the final, and now a young upstart team who's only just got it together towards the World Championship being looked at to try and put a dent. So will Samsung win a single game? I think confidently you can say perhaps, but to win a series against SKT, oh boy.
Confidently perhaps.
All right, well, we're going to find out why you think that in just a few minutes. We'll go into the Samsung Galaxy versus SKT final in just a moment. If you're watching in the client, head over to youtube.com/LOL Esports for the full version of Worlds Tonight. All right, gentlemen, we have our finals. It's been about 6 weeks now, 16 teams, and we're down to the final 2. Korea's Samsung Galaxy and defending champions SK Telecom T1. Many, as I said in the intro, Samsung, the surprise of Korea coming in, being able to basically wow their way in, but then show that they're a team that belonged here.
And it's 2 years in a row. Last year, Crew Tigers were definitely 3rd place, you'd have to say. Whether it was seeding or not, KT Rolster was the team people really respected. and the Crew Tigers made it to the final, couldn't get much done in the final, but this year it's Samsung. I think people were surprised it wasn't KT Rolster at the tournament, but Samsung took that kind of expectation or lack of expectation around this team, snowballed it, and by the time we see Samsung in the semifinals and going towards the finals, they're an entirely new proposition. They actually look like a top team next to the likes of SKT.
Yeah, and everyone coming into the tournament talked about, you know, is the gap closing? Is this the year where Korea maybe doesn't dominate everyone? It is not the year where Korea suddenly, or when the gap is closed.
Another surprise.
Yeah, it is definitely the year where Korea is dominating, maybe even harder than they did last year. But let's remember, they got 3-0s in the semifinals last year as well. And KT dropped out because they played ROX Tigers in that quarterfinal. So I think we're just seeing that the gap between Korea and everyone else is still as wide as before. But I think the gap between every other region and also some of the wildcard regions coming in are closing and getting more and more even, and that is entertaining when they play each other. But when you do play these Korean powerhouses, no other team can really do anything against them other than like a top LCK team.
Well, it's good we have a few top LCK teams going into the finals, and I want to dig into a few of those lanes. What are we looking at in the mid lane? Faker versus Crown now. Crown maybe during the season wasn't on par, but after a world showing, after getting a few of the nerves out, is this going to be a matchup that maybe needs to be edged out by Bengi's side? Or maybe does Ambition have to come in more?
I mean, at this point, it's a story as old as time, or LoL esports time, because it's a pretender coming to Faker's crown. Faker has been that dominant force in the mid lane for 3 years, and Crown, he's getting there. Look, he's played this tournament, he's played this series, he outclassed Ryu, a person who was really performing well at Worlds, looked at another level, and now the question is, can he stand up to Faker? Because a lot of people have looked good elsewhere and then wilted facing Faker.
Yeah, I think this might be the most important matchup of the series, because if we look at SKT versus ROX, ROX were actually able to either win on top side or maybe win on bottom side, but mid lane they lost every single game, and it allowed Faker to either take down the tower, get a kill, and also to roam first every time something happened on the side lane. So I think Crown has to be able to hold his own, / maybe even overperform and beat Faker in one of the games for Samsung to really pull off a big upset. And I think that's really, really key. Sadly for Crown, he has played so much against Faker in the past, and we haven't seen that big upset.
And the query for me also is champion pool, right? I mean, he's shown the Cassiopeia today. The Victor we know he has. Victor against Faker didn't look too great for Kuro just yesterday, and he's another great Victor player. So does he have those extra champions? We don't think he plays the Aurelion Sol. Does he have the other X factors? They have to ban Syndra a lot. Question marks on Crown, and whether that's going to be figured out in picks or bans, or if they just give him Victor and navigate around the Victor pick like they did against Kuro. I think Crown can get there, but I think he has to show something new if they're going to win more than a single game in the final.
Is this a game where we have to see Ambition play as he did tonight and give Crown the edge? Is that going to be something that Samsung needs?
Yeah, I think it could be huge. I think that's another good point. You know, Ambition has been playing really well this tournament so far. He's definitely been a force to be reckoned with, both early game and late game, which I think stands out. And we also know he's such a big voice on the team. So it's kind of like him and Crown together, because I actually think, like, side lanes, I think they're going to be fine. I think 2v2, they're okay. I think top lane, 1v1, they're okay. It's literally about mid-jungle where I need to see that advantage go in favor of Samsung for them to win.
And it's just such a cool matchup, because these are two obviously very long-term players, two very historical players, and we talk about good roster changes. Double lift to TSM, for example, is one that NA fans can look at that really leveled up TSM. Samsung was right down the bottom when they got Ambition at the start of this year. They were not a team that was a contender. They'd never made playoffs. After of course, Samsung White and Blue were no longer a thing. And then Ambition comes in, is that shot-calling voice. They level up in spring. They level up much further in summer. And now they're on a whole different level at Worlds. So it's just really cool to see Ambition being the key factor there. And then Bengi, his likely opponent, did the same thing for SK Telecom, just a single series. So it's nice to see the old men of the jungle, the old men of League of Legends esports, really a big
Yeah, it's cool to be old right now, that's for sure.
That's exactly what I got of it. And on the other side, obviously Bengi coming in. We're seeing that Blank's not working for SKT. Can Ambition even stop Bengi before trying to help Crown?
So I mean, I have to say yes, because I actually think I think Ambition is a really good jungler. The problem is, it's so rare that you're just stopping one guy. You're kind of stopping Bengi plus Faker, then Wolf is there, then suddenly there's the TP coming down, and then, you know, more people join in. So just beating the jungle matchup in itself is important, but it's so hard to do. I think Bengi and even Blank, because I think he's going to play a game or two as well. I think both those guys can go even with ambition, and then it's up to everyone else really to kind of get the advantage.
And I like that you hit the blank point, sorry, just because I do expect him to play. And although Blank's style and what Blank brought to the series against Rocks Tigers, lost on the 2 games, he was 0-2. He has been very successful for the rest of the year. They play a little bit differently when Blank's in the lineup. So just because it didn't line up against Rocks Tigers doesn't mean that it's not going to be effective against Samsung.
That's very interesting. I mean, in the past, we saw Faker and Easy Hoon kind of being switched out with no rhyme or reason as well due to a match here or there. So it could definitely be something. You guys have given kind of a little heart to both Samsung Galaxy and SKT here, but I have to put you in the hot seat. Papasmithy, starting with you. What is your pick now to go for the finals and take the Summoners Cup?
I mean, a lot of people were kind of half-heartedly talking about SKT Rocks as the champions-elect, as the potential world final, but in the semifinals, I think they're on the money. I think it's SKT 3-0. I think the hope for maybe a single game for Samsung is there, but a series win, I can't see it.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Samsung 1 game.
Okay.
But I'm gonna give SKT the 3 games. So yeah, it's honestly a fairly easy prediction because SKT beat out Rocks and looked so good in it. But it's also because we haven't seen Samsung take on Rocks or SKT yet in this tournament. So like we have this new team coming in, was great in the gauntlet, beat KT, definitely in that way deserved to be here for sure. And it's been looking very, very good against everyone else. But it's often different when you then take on the big dog, and that is SKT right now, and I think they're gonna win.
Well, it's going to be one of the greatest finals we've ever seen. Hopefully, the teams will have, obviously, another week to look at each other. No trap games here, just simple scouting. Hopefully, everybody sees that there's nothing more than the MF down in that bot lane.
But then we're going to get a counter to the MF, and that's going to be a new pick.
I don't even know what that is. What beats MF in lane as an AD carry? Tristana?
Draven.
Tristana support?
Draven support.
Draven.
I think we're on something. We can't go too much farther than this. We're just going to start giving away picks that these guys will use all over and be like, we got to muffle Worlds tonight. So we'll digress here, but we do want to say thank you for joining us for Worlds tonight as well. Don't forget to check out Samsung Galaxy versus SK Telecom as SKT defends their title for the Summoners Cup on the 29th in Los Angeles. Be there. We'll see you.
Gonna outrun an Echo. Phase dive forward. Forgiven's getting chunked out. Time winder plus boomerang. It's not done yet. Cube's unforgiven. Cube's got forgiven. Vander's not going to be able to turn it back around. H2K, they cannot leave their fountain. H2K, they will be going home. A 3-0 sweep will send Samsung Galaxy to the World Finals.